The realization process will surprise you. I'm sure you've heard me say something like this before. That first big shift, awakening, which even to call it a shift doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's more like a small world dissolves into a vast, infinite world that's so flexible, so ineffable, so expansive and intimate that to even call it a world doesn't make a lot of sense. We just find that things are the way they are, could never be otherwise. And in that knowing, there's a complete relinquishment of needing to know anything. So the knowing process, which has been co-opted for so long, can just stop. It can settle. The knowing process got co-opted because we forgot what we were afraid of. We covered up those childhood fears, adolescent fears, with identities. And those identities are our interface with the world. And when we're taking ourselves to be those identities, we overlook the fact that we never fully integrated the fears of childhood. So we're living in a bit of a false reality. And built into that false reality is this need to continue to construct identity. We have to keep gaining beliefs about ourselves and paradigms and keep convincing ourselves we're on some sort of path, getting somewhere, getting better, getting smarter, getting healthier. This process is kind of exhausting, but we have to keep it going or else the whole identity structure will collapse and we'll come face to face with that which we've been avoiding for so long. So we keep working at it, and it's a lot of work. Maintaining an identity is a lot of work. We have to hide things from ourselves. We have to distract ourselves in many ways. So when we recognize and acknowledge how much work this is, to have it suddenly become crystal clear that you actually don't have to do any of that. There's nothing to protect. There's nothing to defend. There's nothing you have to keep working on to make yourself feel okay. The okayness is already here. It's already built into reality. That's a huge relief. And it's surprising, even if you've heard this described, even if you've read a lot about awakening or met people who have had the experience themselves, it's still quite a surprise because you can never really know intellectually how it's going to be, how it's going to feel. So that's the first big surprise. Then later down the road, life will bring you other surprises. It tends to kind of mess with your life a little bit. Sometimes a lot, but often it's just a little bit here and there. It'll put you in certain situations you need to experience to be able to dissolve deeper fixations and identity structures that remain. It will sometimes mess with your relationships, your vocation, even your health. But this is okay. We can now perceive this as a sort of divine intervention, a fierce grace at times when it's uncomfortable. We're helped by unseen forces to go to the places that we can't help but habitually avoid through habit. So it's really grace that we're forced into certain situations that feel quite surprising, unexpected. You might find yourself thinking, this isn't what I thought realization was about. This doesn't feel like I felt right after I had an awakening. In fact, it's sometimes the opposite. It feels extremely raw, extremely unfiltered, heavy even, contracted. But that's okay. You need to go to these places as well. You need to find presence in all situations and all experiences. Find truth in all situations and all experiences. Find truth in emotions, in resistance patterns, in beliefs, in thoughts, in sounds, in sensations, until that presence just permeates all experience. Then at some point, the big struggle can come to an end. There's nothing out there to struggle against anymore. It was all made up the whole time. It really was a story. It was a narrative that we've been telling ourselves in our mind. And we see that all struggle is not a reaction to the external world, to the quote-unquote real world. What struggle was a reaction to was our own beliefs, expectations, and preconceptions. So when that's clear, struggle can stop. And you could say when struggle stops at the deepest level, the sense of a self, a part, that struggles, that suffers, also disappears. They're tied together. So we need surprises. We need the unexpected, and not in a way that we can do it to ourselves. We have to give the reins over to life and let it throw us a few curveballs. So the advice here is just be open, trusting deeply in life, which is trusting deeply in this moment. If there are thoughts, consciousness moving, that's what's happening. It's perfect. It's what needs to be happening. If there's emotion, that's what needs to be happening. If there's inquiry, that's what needs to be happening. If there's letting go, that's what needs to be happening. If there's holding on, that's what needs to be happening. Don't fall into the trap of comparing your immediate experience now with an idealized experience, something I've said, something you've heard from here or anywhere else. And most importantly, any memory of your own experience. There's no reason to compare this moment to anything because there are not other moments. That's the mistake. When you try to compare this moment to something else, you're comparing something to nothing. You're comparing reality to what never could be, because there is only this. There's only ever been this. So this is the Sat Guru. It's your best teacher. It's a fire that burns up all traces of identity, delusion, struggle, and it burns them up not by making you disappear experientially. It burns them up by merging you with experience until things are so seamless there's no way to differentiate yourself from experience anymore. And then it's seen that there is only this vivid experience, and it's non-dualistic. It's not somewhere else. There is nowhere else. It's just a vivid display of intimacy, of dissolution, of integration and disintegration simultaneously. It's quite wonderful. And it's endlessly surprising, because here you really don't know anything in the traditional way of speaking about knowing. Because here you really don't know anything in the traditional sense of knowing. But in another sense, you've inherited everything, because it's clear that everything and anything is this right here. This is full expression. This one sound. This one physical sensation. Full expression of all that is and all that could never be. Reality and unreality. Integration and disintegration as one breath, one footstep, one sigh, one experience of frustration, one experience of surprise. That's the innocence. It's always a surprise because it's always mysterious. And it's always evolving, dissolving, so thoroughly that nothing can even be said to come into being. This is beyond being and non-being. But that's not out there somewhere. It's right where you are.